صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most High, the Most Wise, ordered us and informed us that we are created for no reason whatsoever except to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And because this is the only purpose, that means we need to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with all of our senses, with the different parts of our bodies from head to toe. But not according to our desires, but according to the way of the Prophet ﷺ. That needs knowledge. We need to seek the knowledge in which to imitate the Prophet ﷺ in all our affairs, to follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the most perfect way. One of which is the outside appearance, and we talked about that last time. But this is something that covers the whole body of a Muslim. The way we speak, the way we raise our voice or lower our voice, the way we appear to in front of others, the clothing that we wear. We would find that some regulations mentioned, something in the Qur'an, something in the way of the Prophet ﷺ, that were not left for our desires, but there's some guidelines for us as Muslims to observe the humbleness and the different manners that we're supposed to observe following the way of the Prophet ﷺ. When we talked about the outside appearance and the different things that we say and appear and so on, one of which is to lower our voice. Many people, they don't talk about this, or they don't consider that as part of our religion. This is part of our religion, is to make sure that our voice is not raised unless there is a reason for the voice to be raised. A person giving khutbah, for example, in a masjid, the Prophet ﷺ used to give the khutbah in Jumu'ah, and he would raise his voice, ﷺ, as if he's warning an army. And the same thing if a person is educating others and he needs to raise his voice for the voice to reach those who are far away from him. There's no harm. Calling someone, doing something to prevent someone from falling into some harm or whatever. If there's a need, definitely it's something that is good. But in general, we do not raise our voice for no reason. And this is something that is mentioned in the Qur'an, part of the advice of Luqman to his son, when he said to his son, وَغْضُضْ مِنْ صَوْتِكَ إِنَّ أَنْكَرَ الْأَصْوَاتِ لَصَوْتُ الْحَمِيرِ, which means and lower your voice. Do not raise your voice. Then he informed them that the most annoying voice is the voice of a donkey, right? So the human beings were supposed to not to imitate the animals and to lower our voice and so on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also in Surah Al-Hujurat, when he forbade the companions radiallahu anhum from raising their voice over the voice of the Prophet ﷺ as a matter of etiquette. And he said, subhanahu wa ta'ala, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَرْفَعُوا أَصْوَاتَكُمْ فَوْقَ صَوْتِ النَّبِيِّ وَلَا تَجْهَرُوا لَهُ بِالْقَوْلِ كَجَهْرِ بَعْضِكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ أَن تَحْبَطَ أَعْمَالُكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ. That all you who believe, do not raise your voice over the voice of the Prophet ﷺ. And do not raise your voice like you would speak to one another, otherwise your deeds can be rendered. And you do not feel that, and you do not see that. So this is the order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's why when this verse was revealed, they would never raise their voice whatsoever in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. And some of them, they thought that their deeds were rendered because they would give a speech when the Prophet ﷺ is present. So this is something that is important for us to observe. To the extent of which, that if a person in the masjid, in the house of Allah, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reciting Qur'an, there is nothing better than that, to stay in the masjid to recite Qur'an. In that way, we are ordered also to lower our voice and not to raise our voice with the recitation of the Qur'an, especially if there are people gathering and people are doing different acts of worship. Some of them are making salah, some of them reciting Qur'an. At the time of the i'tikaf, when people were in the masjid in the last 10 days of Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ, he was in his khiba, in his covering, and he lifted that and he said to the people when he heard someone raising his voice in recitation of the Quran, he said, أَلَا إِنَّ كُلَّكُمْ مُنَاجٍ رَبَّ, which means all of them, all of you are basically making dhikr and remembrance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and making dua and making acts of worship. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, فَلَا يَرْفَعْ بَعْضُكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ فِي الْقِرَاءَةِ, which means none of you should raise his voice, his recitation over the other. Meaning reciting Quran, it is not permissible for you when people are present and they are also reciting Quran that you would raise your voice over them. And then it becomes a competition between people. So this is definitely a very important etiquette. It teaches the Muslim to have manners, teaches the Muslim to observe these manners, whether it's with elders or with young or whatever, to speak in the tone that is needed. If it needs for the person to raise his voice, there is no harm, again, as we heard before. It comes with this, again, this is part of the outside appearance and the etiquettes. And they used to learn these manners the same way that they would learn the knowledge of the religion of Islam. And this was passed from one generation to the other. The strong adherence to the way of the Prophet ﷺ, as it was mentioned, for example, you would read that in the books of the talks about men, the narrators of the hadith, and how their manners and their etiquettes used to be. When one of them, as Abu Dawood, rahimahullah, one of the compilers of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when Imam al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, he mentioned about his biography, and he said that he used to imitate and he used to look alike and in his manners and his outside appearance to Imam Ahmad, his Sheikh. The student looks like the Sheikh, looks like the teacher. And then he started mentioning one after the other in the chain of narration, that Imam Ahmad to his Sheikh and so on, till they reached Alqama, the students of Ibn Mas'ud. And then he said that Alqama, he used to look like and act like and look like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the companion of the Prophet ﷺ. Every generation, they took the outside appearance and the manners and everything from the generation that came before them. One generation after the other. They took the religion of Islam, not just some information that they passed it from one generation to the other. They took the whole entire attitude and behavior and the outside appearance. The early generations of Islam, some of them would travel far away distance to learn as-samt, which is the outside appearance, the behavior, the manners, the same way that they would learn the knowledge and the detail of the knowledge that they passed from one generation to the other. To the extent of which the students of the people of knowledge would write down what they see from the scholars, right, in their manners and their etiquettes and how they deal with things and how they visit the sick and so on, because they know exactly and they saw in them that they were imitating the Prophet ﷺ in a practical way. So they, in a sense, that they are taking from them the way of the Prophet ﷺ that was passed from one generation to the other. So this issue of husn al-samt, or the outside appearance and the behavior and the manners, is something that is very, very important at all times. And referring back to the statement of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, that a time would come, towards the end of the time, when their people would be corruption and so on. He said that husn al-samt khayrun min ba'd al-amal, that the outside appearance and the actions and the behavior is better than some of the deeds. Why? Because this is something that preserves the identity of the Muslim, preserves the identity of this generation after another, so that also the whole entire religion of Islam will be implemented in our lives. And one of that is even, and as we mentioned before, raising the voice, lowering the voice, the etiquettes of the outside appearance, the things that we wear, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in all of our affairs, and to look into this as this is basically you are guarding the religion of Islam at the time when everything looks strange to others. Our goal is to follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ, when he passed and he was with some of his companions and they were traveling, and some of them would raise their voice in the takbir whenever they would go in a higher place, which is the way of the Prophet ﷺ, at-takbir ala kulli sharaf, which means every time you go in a higher place, you say Allahu Akbar. But they were raising their voice so much. The Prophet ﷺ told them, Arbi'u ala anfusikum, which basically informally means take it easy on yourself, because you're not calling someone that is deaf, right, or someone that is away from you. You're calling into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that is close to you with His knowledge and His power subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the Prophet ﷺ ordered them to lower their voice in matters of dhikr, in matters of ibadah, in matters of dua. And the verse was revealed, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. Which means that if my slaves ask you about me, O Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm close to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is close to us with His knowledge, with His power subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that needs for the people to be humble and to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And again, when we are truthful with ourselves as Muslims, what's the matter with us? Why we are not following the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? What is preventing us from being true followers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Why we as Muslims now, we are always debating whether this is important or this is less important? Why can't we just follow the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in all different aspects? Outside appearance, the way we look, the way we act, the way our acts of worship, matters of belief. Never differentiate between what is big and what is small, and what is important and what is less important. There's no such a thing as less important when it comes to the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I remember an incident, and I think I mentioned that before, in which it shows that some of the things that people might accuse so much of the Muslims of being holding fast to some little things, it's not little things. A person was in front of a judge, right, and the judge was a secularist one, and he was accusing this Muslim and saying, you people are wearing these turbans and wearing these clothes. What is a piece of cloth to do with all of what is important? This is nonsense, this is not important. So the man told him, how about the flag behind you, right? This is a piece of cloth. Change it and put the flag of another country. He said, there's no way, this is the symbol of the sovereignty and so on. He says, but it's a piece of cloth. The same way, it's not a piece of cloth. It's not some hair on the face. It is the identity of a Muslim. It's the way of the Prophet ﷺ, that as a result of that, we can implement the whole entire religion of Islam. We don't belittle anything, and we don't just focus on one thing and not the other, but we take the religion of Islam in its totality. Our goal is to follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ and put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because definitely the best way is the way of Rasulullah ﷺ, and our life is short. And we will be questioned about it in the Day of Judgment. We will be asked about the way of the Prophet ﷺ. How did we make the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ victorious? At a time when people would ridicule the Sunnah, the way of the Prophet ﷺ, were you just paying attention too much to what people say? Were you just being defeated by what people say? Whether they are stronger than you physically or whatever there is? Or were you steadfast on the way of the Prophet ﷺ and imitating him? Till the moment comes when the Prophet ﷺ will give the drink to his followers, to the true followers in the Day of Judgment, and this is where the hearts of the believers are attached. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who imitate the Prophet ﷺ, and our outside appearance and our actions and our manners, our smile on our face, everything is according to the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين. قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي لا شريك له وبذلك